Hey friend, this is episode number 567 of the And So podcast with Taylor Bradford. Let's get to it. Boss Girl Creative presents And So with Taylor Bradford, business and life musings from a successful serial entrepreneur. Each week, you will hear Taylor spill the tea on all things business, life, relationships, health, and everything in between. But don't worry, each week also includes a business nugget that will help you stay on course. And now a throwback to 3-year-old Taylor who inspired all of this.
And so, what is it?
Hello, welcome to episode 567. I'm your host, Taylor Bradford. Thank you so much for being here. I have a super nerdy episode for you, and it's all about creating bingeable content, which is kind of where I've landed with my account. And it's so fascinating, and there's like science behind it and all of that. So we're going to get super nerdy. This is actually going to be a 2-part episode. I'm going to really dive into layer 1 and layer 2 of creating bingeable content. And then next week we are going to wrap it up with layer 3 and 4 and then tie it all together. So this is part 1 of 4 layers to creating bingeable content and what it actually means. And yeah, so let's find out what's been going on in my world. I am deep in planting season and I feel behind because I didn't start as many plants as I did last season at this scale. And I'm going to be direct sowing a lot more. And it was because I didn't want to plant babysit until I could get everything into the ground. But it is causing me to feel behind, but I'll get over that. So I'm deep in planting season. Okra's all planted. I've got some corn in the ground that's already actually started germinating. I've got tomatoes in the ground. Most of my pepper plants are in the ground. Zinnias, about 50% are in the ground. Sunflowers are in the ground. I need to plant out the rest of my corn. And then up next is cucumbers and beans and squash and zucchini and melons. And all of that is going to be direct sown into the garden. I managed to read quite a bit between now and last week. I finished The Peach Keeper by Sarah Addison Allen, 5 stars. That was a really delightful book. And then I picked up another one from her, The Sugar Queen, 5 stars, and another delightful book. And then I moved into a brand new to me author, Ellie Griffiths, and I read The Stranger Diaries, which is book 1 in a series, 4 stars. And then I moved into book 2 of that series, The Postscript Murders, 4 stars. And then that series, book 3, comes out soon. So I went to see what else she had, and I read The Frozen People, which is book 1 in another series of hers. And that was 4 stars. And I look forward to book 2 in that series. And I just got my read on last week. Quite a bit read. So, okay. House update. My hangar door is finished. It's ready for metal. And we were able to get some more finish out work going or in progress. And we are trying to find a new metal person to finish the exterior siding so that we can move on to sheetrock and spray foam. Okay, so let's talk about my course. I made another sale. That's really exciting. I did adjust my CTAs on my reels, my call to actions. I have had 104 keyword triggers since adjusting those CTAs, I think about a week ago. I have had 5,270 page views to my checkout page, almost 1,000 page views since making more adjustments to my copy on April the 10th. I have had 1.6 million views on my Instagram content in the last 30 days. And I now have 14,331 followers on Instagram and 6,118 followers on my Facebook page, which I'm not trying to grow. It's growing on its own because of my content, and that's amazing. I am working on my next product in the background. The first half of it is done, and I'm working on the second half, hopefully starting today. And I've already gotten some eyeballs on it to get some feedback, and the feedback's been really great. So I'm trying to figure out if I make a shift or not. Like, I've talked about that I don't remember if it was last week's episode or the week before, but I know I have a strong course right now. I'm wondering if my funnel needs to lead to the course. And you guys know that I always test and tune to find where I should land. I've been doing that for years and years and years, and this is no different. And yeah, so I am working on that in the background. Like I said, the first half of it is done. I've had eyeballs on it, good feedback, and now we're going to knock out the second half and then see what happens next. Okay, search bar confessions. That's where we are now. It's very skinny because, like I said last week, it's all gardening content, which I don't want to bore you with, but my Tahoe actually is having problems. And so I've been Googling a lot about what's wrong with it and the codes it's throwing. And turns out my catalytic converters are stopped up and it's causing all kinds of problems. So we're getting that fixed. And then I was in the grocery store yesterday trying to come up with what I was going to eat. And last week I paired a ravioli that was the cacao de pepe. Forgive me if I'm saying that wrong. But it's basically the ricotta inside the ravioli, and then the ravioli itself, the pasta part, was mixed with pepper. And I paired that with a butter sauce and asparagus, and it was delightful. And then a big handful of grated Parmesan. And I was going to recreate that recipe, but the grocery store I was at did not have any asparagus, which was really kind of shocking. So then I was like walking down the aisles thinking like, what can I make? And I saw Hamburger Helper and I was like, well, surely I can make that without it being in a box. And so I did. It was like 4 out of 10 recipe. And it went right into the trash. It was not good. And I think it was primarily the pasta I chose. I went with a protein-based pasta, and no, it went into the trash. It was not good. So I should have gone to a different grocery store and stuck with my original plan. So that was my search bar confessions for the week. Let's get into this week's business nugget, which is part 1 in this bingeable content layering, like what is involved in bingeable content, and part 2 will be next week. So bingeable content is about creating continuity, and it's every piece of content is connected to something bigger. It's not just a one-off tip post or not just a random post, but it's actually a body of work that is felt and experienced by your audience. One of the coolest things that I have experienced to date with this big shift into garden education and getting traction in my Instagram and having a course is the conversations happening in my DMs. Like, I welcome all conversation. Sometimes I get a little annoyed when the robot responds to somebody because they happen to use one of my trigger words and it makes me look like an imbecile. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for the robot. And then I answer and then I'm like, hey, let's, go over into DMs to finish this conversation. And then the robot's already in the DMs and I'm like, I'm so sorry. And I really am a human and I want to talk about soil. Like, that was the question. But what I'm seeing in my DMs has a consistent message. Here's one. I don't know anything about gardening. I thought your account would be good to follow for tips. I relocated and I'm restarting my garden. Your account showed up and I love the content. I'm going to just follow along until I'm ready to get serious about planting after I prepare my ground. I'm seeing this over and over and over. I followed your account because I love everything that you're posting. I'm learning so much from your account. I decided to follow. And that signals to me that my content is worth binging. So what makes something bingeable? What makes your content bingeable? There are 4 layers. We're going to talk about the 2 layers in this episode, the first 2, and then we're going to talk about the last 2 in next week's episode. So layer 1 is it solves a problem they didn't know they had. Layer 2 is it builds trust through repetition, not reinvention. Layer 3, it feels like a conversation they can re-enter at any point. And layer 4, it reflects a process, not just an outcome. So we're going to talk about the first 2, and this builds upon the next. So you have to have layer 1, and then you have layer 2, and then you have layer 3, and then you have layer 4. That is how, look at a hamburger. You've got a bun and you've got meat, but you've also got other layers in there, like your sauce and your veggies. That's what makes a good burger, right? So 4 layers of bingeable content. We're talking about the first 2. And first up is it solves a problem they didn't know they had yet. So your audience, they experience or feel something before they even know they either had a problem or they were looking for the thing that you have a solution to something they couldn't quite name yet. So they maybe are experiencing friction or discomfort or curiosity or desire, and they land on your content and they feel one of those things, but they can't quite iterate what that actually is. So you want to give someone a way to feel capable at something new, a way to slow down and learn something tactile, a break from whatever noisy online content they've been consuming. You want to make them feel good to be within your content, good to be on your profile, good to be, going through what you've previously posted. So this layer isn't primarily about teaching, it's about recognition. The function is diagnostic, not instructional. So most content targets intent, like how to or tips for or best way to, but this layer sits underneath all of that. This layer targets why they haven't acted yet. What's creating resistance for them? What's misaligned or misunderstood? And once the hidden problem is revealed to them, a new awareness is created. Now they think, if this is the real issue, what do I do about it? This layer works because it feels uncomfortably specific. It identifies a pre-verbalized problem. It names it with precision. It reframes it in a new way. It creates recognition before instruction, and it opens a loop the audience now wants to resolve. So that's layer 1, solving a problem they didn't know they had yet. Now, layer 2 is it builds trust through repetition, not reinvention. So with layer 1, they're thinking, wait, that's me in your content. And layer 2, they're now thinking, okay, can I trust you to keep helping me understand this? This is about consistency in meaning, like your content being consistent in what you mean to say. So your audience begins to recognize your pattern, not just your content. So they are subconsciously asking, do you keep talking about this in a way that holds up? Are you stable in what you believe? And do I know what I'm going to get from you? That's what they're subconsciously thinking. And they're hoping that you're doing that. They're hoping that you keep talking about your thing that you offer, your thing that you sell in a way that holds up from piece to piece to piece. So repetition builds predictability, which builds trust. You return to the same core problem from multiple angles. Don't think, I already talked about that. Listen, you have to be repetitive because one time isn't enough. This layer requires you to revisit, reinforce, re-articulate, repeat the same truth over and over and over. So it's the same core idea, the thing that you teach, the message that you are sharing. It's the same core idea. It's just a different entry point. It's a different example. It's a different depth. Trust is not built on novelty. It's built on confirmation. So when your message is consistent, your audience doesn't have to relearn you every time. They don't have to decode your content. They don't have to figure out where you stand. At this layer, layer 2, you become a reference point for your audience. You become not just a creator, but someone they can go back to over and over and over. Your audience mentally categorizes you. This creates identity. Repetition signals depth, not redundancy. So if layer 1 is strong, repetition doesn't feel boring. It feels like going deeper, seeing more nuance, understanding more clearly. If layer 1 is weak, repetition is going to feel like saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And we all know what insanity stands for. So layer 2 depends on layer 1 being precise. Trust is built on alignment over time. Anyone can say something insightful once, duh, but trust comes from saying it again, showing it still applies, and demonstrating it in different contexts. Time plus alignment equals trust. So let's repeat layer 2 content. What is it meant to be? It repeats a core truth across multiple contexts. It prioritizes reinforcement over novelty. It creates predictability in message and perspective. It reduces cognitive load for the audience and positions you as a consistent reference point. It builds trust through alignment over time. So if layer 1 evokes, I see myself here, then layer 2 becomes, I trust this voice. So for me, layer 1, it's the people showing up in my DMs, someone discovering a new identity in real time, and they're staying because it made sense while they were there, while they were on my content. Your content doesn't have to be perfectly targeted. It just has to click when someone lands on it. And for me, layer 2, I'm not saying something wildly different every day. I'm circling the same core ideas from different angles. That's clarity and learning and process and figuring it out as I go. And over time, my audience has started to trust that if I stay here, I will understand what she's teaching better. So here's the deal. Your audience needs a thread, something that connects what you're saying today to what you will say tomorrow. You don't need to go viral to be bingeable. You just need to be understandable. Connection makes people want to stay. Okay, so next week we're diving into layer 3 and layer 4. And as a reminder, layer 3 is it feels like a conversation they can re-enter at any point. And layer 4 is it reflects a process, not just an outcome. And then we will tie it all together. Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I will be back next week with part 2 of creating bingeable content and the 4 layers of what that actually means. Yeah, until then, I hope you have a great rest of your week. And like my 3-year-old self said, that is all for this week. Friendly reminder to rate and review my show wherever you are listening. And last but not least, I'd love to hear from you. Leave me an audio message at bossgirlcreative.com/speak. I would love to hear your takeaways, ideas for upcoming episode topics, and your feedback. Thank you again for listening to this week's episode. And until next time, I hope you have a great rest of this one.